Hello, welcome to my channel. Happy New Year! I hope you all had a great holiday break and I'm very glad to have you back. I decided to start this year with a new video format, and in this episode we'll take a look not at a single variety but at 3 different African violet varieties all together. And starting today are Rob's Chilly Willy here in the center, and then Optimara Little Trio, this miniature variety in here, and a semi-miniature called N-Igra Biser or N Game Beads. All of them are now in the middle of their first blooming cycles, and I thought why not review them all together in one shot. Let's start with the smallest one, Rob's Chilly Willy. Rob's Chilly Willy is a miniature variety that was hybridized by Ralph Robinson, and it was registered with the African Violet Society of America in 2005 under the registration number 9461. It is a crown variegated miniature, and the leaves are variegated with medium green and white, and they're also pointed. African violet miniatures normally grow from 3 to 6 inches across. This plant is still very young, and currently it measures 4 inches in diameter. It is recommended to grow miniature varieties in smaller pots than the regular size African violets, and the recommended pot size for miniatures is 2 inches to 2.5 inches, and currently it is grown in a 2-inch pot. The flowers of Rob's Chilly Willy are described as double silver white stars with medium blue overlay and edge, and my variety blooms mostly with blue. There is some silver white, but mostly the blooms have very beautiful shade of blue. They are about 3/4 to an inch in diameter, and here they are in comparison to a dime coin. And in comparison to the size of the rosette, they are very good size blooms, and it's a very good bloomer for the first blooming cycle. Now let's take a look at another miniature, Optimara Little Trio. Optimara Little Trio is one of the newer Optimara varieties. It was introduced in 2017, and it was hybridized by Holtkamp like all Optimaras, and it is part of Optimara Music series. I grew this plant from a leaf that I received from the official distributor of Optimara violets in the United States called Selective Gardener last spring in 2020. Optimara Little Trio is a miniature variety with plain serrated medium green leaves. It is currently growing 5 inches across, and it is now growing in a 2.5-inch pot, and this is the size of the pot in which I will be growing it permanently. The flowers of Optimara Little Trio are described as single pansies with white, lilac and pale green color. They are very beautiful. They look like watercolor painting because the colors transition so nicely on the petals. And they're good sized flowers. They're about 1 inch across. And for the first blooming cycle, this variety is a very good bloomer as well. And finally, let's take a look at a semi-miniature variety called N-Igra Biser. And it was produced by Berdnikova. This is a Russian hybrid, and I received it from Violet Barn in my last order of 2020 as a freebie. So I was very excited to have received this particular variety because it really is one of my favorite variegated semi-miniatures. It was produced by Berdnikova in 2014, and it has pointed medium green and white Tommy Lou variegated foliage. Currently, this semi-miniature measures about 6 inches across, and normally the semi-miniature varieties grow between 6 and 8 inches in diameter of the rosette. It is now grown in a 2.5 inch plastic pot. The flowers of N-Igra Biser are described as semi-double to double white and blue stars. The blooms are about 1 and 1.25 inches in diameter, and here they are in comparison to a dime coin. And currently it has 6 bloom stalks, so not too bad for the first blooming cycle, and I would say it's actually very good for the first blooming cycle. They are grown here on this plant stand that stands next to a west-facing window and also has some LED bulbs in the light fixtures. So they receive some of the natural light and also some of the artificial LED light. And I talk about the kinds of lights that I use on this plant stand in my African violet setup video, and I will include a link to it in the description box. I grow all 3 of these plants on wicks, and I noticed that miniatures and semi-miniatures in my growing environment prefer to be grown using the wick watering method. And for the wicking liquid, I use plain tap water to which I add various types of fertilizers. I've shown some of them in my previous videos. For example, sometimes I use 1/4 teaspoon per gallon of water of Dynagrow liquid plant food, and this particular fertilizer has 7:9:5 NPK ratio. And sometimes I switch to Jack's Classic, which is another popular fertilizer at 20-20-20 NPK ratio, and I use 1/8 teaspoon per gallon of water of Jack's Classic. And recently I also started using Orchid Plus. That's a new fertilizer, or relatively new fertilizer for me, and I noticed that my plants enjoy it as well, and it has 20-14-13 NPK ratio, and I use 1/4 teaspoon per gallon of water of Orchid Plus. So I do not use all 3 of these simultaneously. I rather add either one or another to the wick watering liquid. So here they are again, the stars of today's episode. Rob's Chilly Willy by Ralph Robinson, Optimara Little Trio by Holtkamp, and N-Igra Biser or N Game Beads by Berdnikova. I hope you enjoyed this little group presentation. If you like African violet miniatures and semi-miniatures with white, blue, green, lavender and lilac blooms, I highly recommend these varieties for your collection.